soundtracks are a staple of the show's ever-growing, basically necessary to get the actual whole story list of supplemental material, and has played a major factor in RWBY's popularity, especially earlier on, with the Red trailer showcasing Monty's amazing action directed perfectly to Jeff's music. And I want to talk about all the music we've gotten via soundtrack so far. Now, I feel it's important to preface this. My opinion isn't law, despite my goals to rule the universe eventually. For now, keep in mind that there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with me. All art is subjective, and music especially can be really important to people, so just know that there's a chance I won't like your favorite song, or that I do like your least favorite song. The review in this video's title is in quotes for a reason. I'm giving my 2 cents, but it's not like I could, or even would want to, say that any given song is objectively good or bad. Next, keep in mind that I'm pretty limited on how much of any given song I can play, cause I don't want to get a copyright strike or some shit. If you're chill and got some time, a fun way to go about this video would be for you to listen to the full soundtrack before continuing with my vid to hear what I say about each song. But that's your call, and certainly not a required way of watching my video. I'm also not a music expert or anything. I may use terms incorrectly, and if I do, my bad. I'm not trying to pretend I'm the smartest person in the room when it comes to music. I'm just a person with opinions and too much to say. And the final thing you need to know is I won't be looking at any of the acoustic covers or dance remixes for this video. They are extra content, basically just there to help fill out the track list. Not saying they're bad, but just not really worth talking about because each one will basically just be, it's like the original but slower and with a guitar. Or, it's like the original but with a cool beat. And now that the way too long intro was taken care of, let's finally jump in.
It's also a gun.
A pretty basic Rawk song. Basic isn't bad, PB&J is basic, but also a classic, but it's just not really complex. It's not a song that makes you think. Energetic and fun though. Works well enough as the first OP song. The biggest problem is how hard it is to discern the lyrics, often to the detriment of getting the point across properly. I can't understand Casey a lot of the time, which sorta blows. Score? It sounds like it should always be playing in the background as you fill up your gas. Beautiful, perhaps one of the most complex songs Jeff has produced. All the instruments work together gorgeously, nothing gets overpowered, the melody and beats are strong, almost pulling you forward in the song. Impressively fun to listen to despite only having one short verse. Lyrics are easy to understand, and it was the perfect backing track for the trailer that made so many people fall in love with the show. The biggest downside is that nothing else in RWBY sounds like this. This should be the main composition for the show, and yet it feels like a stranger amongst its own soundtrack. Score makes your heart go doki doki. The operatic orchestral sound fuses with the more intense percussion in a way that blows my mind every time I hear it. It's short, but builds up at the perfect pace. Of all the trailer songs, this is the one that evokes the most emotion out of the song alone. Even without the visuals of the trailer, the entire message of Weiss's feelings get across perfectly, and are only enhanced with the trailer that it was made for. Score makes me wish I could animate so I could make a fight to follow the song. I like how grungy it sounds, a very cool punk rock vibe that ends up fitting the aesthetic of the train in the trailer really well. Jeff's vocals are impressively reserved for him. This might be the best I've heard him sing. Born with no life into subjugation. Clear articulation and good control. Casey's a bit harder to make out, but still impressive. Interesting lore-dropping lyrics, but overall, it's not as automatically grabbing as the previous 2 trailer songs. The extended piano section at the end doesn't work too well when just listening to the song on its own. Score, edgy Sonic the Hedgehog music. Whether or not that's a compliment is up to you. Remixes of the first 3 songs are a fun callback and perfectly backs the much more dialogue-heavy and transitory trailer it accompanies. Weiss's song gets shafted on runtime, though. The transitions between songs are fun and mixes the different styles between them real well. The biggest downside is that it doesn't feel like a Yang song. It's more of like a Team RWBY song. Score? I wish it was just called Junior's Club Mix or something. When I first heard this song, I thought it was from the perspective of Tai singing to Yang. However, it's actually Yang addressing RWBY. Either way, the intended emotion, being comforting and supportive, gets across in an interesting way, having the tempo be quite fast for being a song about comforting RWBY after Summer's death. The song really pushes against Casey's range, causing her to be stuck in a head voice for the whole chorus without much variation between notes. This is the first instance of the dramatically slow bridge that Jeff likes to write, and while it's pretty sudden here, I think it fits the tone. Score: why hasn't this song actually been used in the show? Kinda messy, the guitar and drums aren't really working together, and Casey's lyrics are hard to understand most of the time. The rap in the middle is probably the best part, being energetic if not particularly impressive in terms of vernacular. Honestly, the weakest version of the trailer songs. Score: only worth listening to if you have the original version where they say shit and fuck. An oddly complacent sound for a song about rising up. There's just no real power here. Casey and Lamar aren't properly belting, but rather just end up scream singing throughout the chorus. And the drums are basically doing nothing in the background. Ignoring the lyrics, it sounds almost whimsical, and that just doesn't fit what the song's trying to be about. It also was wasted on Velvet's attack on the Paladins. Score: soundtrack filler. This is a song that Jeff wrote unprompted. He took this world building into his own hands, and you can tell. There's clear passion in this composition. Casey seems to get caught up a bit in the fast tempo, but it's overall clearer than other fast songs in the show, and Sandy doesn't have a problem being understood. There's so much story and emotion in the song, and Jeff allows the lyrics to take precedence, keeping the backing music intense but never fighting for the center stage over the girls. Unfortunately, it doesn't really get to shine in the show, as it could have been replaced with any other fast-paced song for the Nevermore fight. Score: this song deserved its own trailer too. An extended version of I Burn as it was heard in the trailer. The club mix can't help Casey struggling to get the lyrics out on time, but it does fix the issue of the messy instruments in the other version. It's more stimulating and feels more like Yang, since this club music is how we were initially introduced to her, rather than the rock of the not remix version. Honestly, this should have been the original version of I Burn, and the other version should have just been titled Rock Mix or something. Score: just listen to this one. Really just adds another verse to the trailer version, a verse that's way harder to understand with both vocalists stumbling over their pronunciation. The guitar also decides to get too eager and basically drowns out the final chorus. Not worth being its own song, honestly. Score: unnecessary edgy the hedgy. It's not a RWBY song. Jeff wrote it after the loss of a would-be nephew. That being said, it's still very good. A percussion that goes from acting like a faint heartbeat to aimless footsteps. Lovely use of strings that tug at your heart, and a subdued kind of powerful in the choruses. And despite not being originally intended for RWBY, it beautifully caps off the show, playing during the volume's finale credits. A bittersweet song that hits you with one final emotional beat after the girls' first round of adventures conclude. Score: this is the reason I know Jeff is good at his job. Conclusion. It's a weirdly Yang-heavy soundtrack, despite her doing the least of the RWBY girls this volume, with 4 of the 12 songs being attributed to her. It's also quite repetitive. 3 versions of I Burn, 2 versions of From Shadows, and technically Red Like Roses and Mirror Mirror get repeated in the Juniors Club version of I Burn. 7 of the 12 songs are repeated or have alternate versions. Impressively though, despite the repetitiveness of the album, it still ends up feeling very diverse in its songs. Dance mixes, grungy rock, pop opera, slow, fast, mindless, full of lore and story. No matter what you come to RWBY for, there's probably a song on here that you would jive with. Overall score? It's good.
What is wrong?
The far more remembered opening song when compared to This Will Be the Day, and for good reason. More power, more significance to the lyrics, Casey's improved as a vocalist, and the instrumentality is overall more stimulating. And it features perhaps the most important bridge of the entire show's song listing, and it's never been played in the actual show. Why? Score: a must-listen for any RWBY fan. Really hard to make out the lyrics. Die is just about the only word in the song you can consistently understand. It's just too fast, too syllable heavy, and is clearly in a register that's hard for Casey to reach. While you can't understand what she has to say, the melody and backing music is catchy. However, it ends up being so forgettable that I never remember what the song sounds like with its lack of any real hook. I couldn't even remember that it plays during the Paladin fight, and I've watched that fight a lot. Score? The kind of song you play when you're in the car and mad and you want to think over an imaginary argument with whoever has you so upset. A fun, synthy little number, perfect for a short dance segment like the one Juniper got. I'd like to hear Casey try singing this again now, as with her improved skills, she won't end up sounding as forced as she does here. It also changes tempo and backing vibe pretty frequently. It's like the song doesn't know what it actually wants to be. Aimless. Score? This belongs in the background. Basically, if Shine had focus. Despite being explicitly about Pyrrha's crush on Jean, having some of the funnest use of backing music in the soundtrack, and Casey sounding much more confident than with others on the list, this song wasn't ever used in the show, which is a damn shame. Really, the only downside is that a couple of the lyrics end up feeling significantly more yandere-esque than was probably intended. Score just makes you happy, you know? Bananas. All of the lyrics are so hard to get with how quickly they're trying to sing. The drums are drowning out all the vocalists, and it's kind of perfect. It sounds like they're hyped up on caffeine. It oozes the effortless confidence we'd seen with Team Coffee that the song accompanies. And the rap in the middle is so cheesy and goofy, and it's so much slower than the rest of the song. Like, I don't think I can say it's a good song, but for what it's doing, it's executed perfectly. It's not good, but I love it. Score? Great for if you're running late and trying to hurry. Another song that hasn't been featured in the show anywhere, weirdly. It could fit with any of the parental figures. A song Jeff wrote as a message to his daughter, Casey. It's really sweet and ends up feeling very personal. I think the piano can be a bit overbearing, and I think this pitch is sort of high for Casey. She ends up having to be much louder to get into the head voice needed, which doesn't quite fit with how quiet the song feels like it should be. Honestly, with a little bit of altering in the mixing, this song could have hit as hard as Wings did. All that said, it's lovely and full of really touching emotion. Score? I wish it hit me harder than it does. An adorable song detailing Nora's feelings for Ren. It fits her bubbly personality super well without ending up feeling cheesy or fake. Casey can be clearly heard throughout, though the bridge gets kinda tough, and it lets her sing in a range she sounds comfortable with. It's super cute and is clearly a favorite for the showrunners. It's appeared multiple times in RWBY Chibi and was referenced in the background music during Ren's flashback in Volume 4. So why hasn't the actual song appeared yet? It's a good one. Why do this? Score? Stop making Jeff write good songs if you're never gonna actually use them. Really thought-provoking lyrics, which is unfortunate because, again, I'm having a hard time understanding Casey throughout the song. It's an oddly ominous and haunting sound to end the volume's finale credit music, but it's so laden with provocative imagery that it helps you end the volume wanting more. The eerie bridge is perhaps the most memorable part of the song, as the rest, while catchy, ends up feeling a bit generically villain rock. Certainly more memorable than Die, but not by much. Score? Great song if you like making theories. Conclusion. A more Juniper-inclusive soundtrack, with 3 songs being explicitly about the B-Team, which is fine since they weren't featured in any way with the first soundtrack. However, that compounded with Die and Sacrifice being villain-oriented, and All Our Days being a personal, not RWBY song, and our title team ends up feeling kinda shafted. 11 total songs, 3 that are remixes / acoustic covers of old songs, 2 villain songs, 3 Juniper songs, 1 Team Coffee song, 1 personal to Jeff song, leaves us with only time to say goodbye for Team RWBY, which kinda blows. Also, the order of the songs is so bad. You're really gonna sandwich the slow, emotional All Our Days between fucking Boop and Caffeine? The album constantly makes major shifts in tone, causing the whole thing to feel very incohesive. Overall score, much like with how you can compare Volume 2 with Volume 1, they've clearly improved in some places, but is not as overall enjoyable as was previously done.
Do you believe in destiny?
Jeff is completely fucking incomprehensible. This faux screamo is bad. A vocalist should still be understandable when doing this style of song, and he's not. Casey fares much better since she gets to do other non-screamo lyrics, but overall the song is very hard to understand. The lyrics are really clunky and wordy. The bad vibes tone is at least conveyed, setting the atmosphere as it introduces each episode for Volume 3. It's a cool rock sound, but it just can't convey anything with these lyrics and vocals. Score would be better as an instrumental only. Jeff's vocals still suck. From Shadows proves that he can sing. This shitty screamo thing he's trying to do is just not working. And again, compounded with his overly wordy lyrics and ridiculously fast-paced tempo, and the instruments in the back doing their best to drown out the vocals, this song is the embodiment of all the worst elements of RWBY's soundtracks. Like, despite explaining the baddie's backstory, you can't learn any of this lore without googling what the actual lyrics are and reading them. It's an exciting song for Emerald and Mercury to fight to, but without the fight to supplement it, the song is just noise. Score? Just fucking chill out. A Weiss song going a bit further in depth with her relationship with her father and how she's grown with her friends. Kind of weird to have it played during RWBY's fight against Auburn. I feel it would have worked better during the Crow and Winter fight. Either way, Casey's much easier to understand than the vocals have been for the soundtrack so far, though I wish the vocals and backing instruments weren't all at the same volume level. It's an empowering song. Score, probably the most de facto fun Weiss song. This plays after Team Sun's fight in the tournament when the boys are dancing. While it could be interpreted as Sun addressing Blake, it's more sort of just a background pop song, the kind of music that would be on the radio in a cartoon. The song equivalent to Potato Chips. It's pretty generic, but Jeff's doing much better acting as the vocalist here than he has been. Score? Team Sun should get an extended dance performance to the song. Made to fit the party girl vibe of the song's namesake, Neon ends up being just as enjoyable as the cast it's played for in the show. The use of trumpets are fun and punchy, while also alluding to Flint. It's excellently self-centered and antagonistic, translating Neon's insult tactics into music beautifully. Casey is easily understood for the whole song too, allowing the listener to actually appreciate the lyrics. Score? The best girl in the best episode gets the best song. Another song about Weiss's struggles in the Schnee manner. It just ends up feeling unnecessary, as It's My Turn already did this. Mirror Mirror Part 2 is just repeating the same message as a different song on the soundtrack, but really slowly. It feels less like Part 2 to Mirror Mirror, and more like It's My Turn, but more and sadder. It's doing nothing new in terms of characterization, and while I appreciate the slow yet punchy sound, it ends up feeling wasted on a song with no clear point. Score? Should have kept the beat, but not made it about Weiss. A stronger, better planned out version of what Sacrifice was trying to do. Unfortunately, the same issues that plague most songs on the soundtrack can be found here. Casey, and especially Jeff, can be difficult to understand at times, and the instruments and vocals are all the same level, making it sound like they're fighting for your attention. It's an oddly energetic song to start off the finale's credits with, as it moreover gets you ready for more to happen, rather than ease you into the end of the volume. Score, easily the best villain song so far. Jeff wrote the song in tribute to Monty after his passing, and it's really touching. Unlike with how All Our Days fared, I feel the piano is much more reserved on this track, and Casey is able to properly convey the soft tone intended. It's simultaneously mournful and thankful, and the smart use of building instrumentation clearly gives the impression that Jeff cared a lot about the production of the song. The ending is quite abrupt, but I wonder if that was intentional. As the final song to round out the volume's credits, it wonderfully allows the viewer to reflect on not only the volume they just finished, but life in general. Score? Simply beautiful. Conclusion. I found myself wondering if the production of this soundtrack was troubled. Of course, Monty's passing undoubtedly affected Jeff and Casey, but moreover, I wonder if they weren't given enough time to work on this one. The muddy lyrics, the noisy mixing, these feel like the effects of not being able to iron out all the kinks in time. I'll also note that Jeff's love for a slow, dramatic bridge becomes blatant by this point, as about 11 and a half songs so far feature this gimmick. It was old back in 2016 when this soundtrack was released, and it's still old now. Overall score, unfortunately, ends up feeling rushed out for most tracks.
Well, I guess you lost some brain cells along with that arm.
Originally written for the Beacon Dance arc, this song's tone is odd. It's so upbeat sounding for detailing such difficulties, all without an ounce of dramatic irony. It's played weirdly straight and ends up conveying an oddly disjointed atmosphere, acting as Volume 4's OP. The slow bridge is totally unnecessary and just ends up killing the pacing for nothing.
In the story.
Honestly, the bridge feels like it could have been a totally different song. Casey still has to get incredibly wordy lyrics out while getting swallowed by the guitar. Score? Aimless and powerless, like a lost bird. Blake finally gets another song after getting nothing beyond From Shadows back for Volume 1. I don't know how to explain this, but Casey and Lamar's voices just don't jive together for me, and I can't figure out why. When they sing together, they bleed together. It doesn't sound like a duet, it sounds like weird auto-tune. And Jeff's caterwauling near its conclusion is just asinine sounding, like a kid trying to pull the attention back onto him. It's really not expanding on Blake or Sun in any way, and it's easy to forget that it backed their fight on the boat. The instruments are still too loud, and Jeff's trying to make them both sing way out of their range. Score? I wish I liked this more than I do. It's just so hard to understand Jeff. I'm trying, I really am. It's the same as it has been. Hard to understand, scream-sung lyrics aren't enunciated properly, and the instruments are too loud. It does fit the intense Tyrion vs. Crow fight it backs, sounding angry and worn down, but conveying a tone and coming up with a melody aren't the only things that go into producing a good song. Score? Honestly fun to listen to if you're feeling stressed. On the soundtrack album, it's also listed as Mirror Mirror Part 3, which makes sense, because it's the exact same song and dance we've already gotten 3 times already for Weiss. In terms of characterization and lore, it's identical to It's My Turn and Mirror Mirror Part 2. Casey does a very good job at the opera sound in the beginning, as does Jeff. And then the guitars kick in and it becomes identical to seemingly every song RWBY produces anymore. Generic butt rock stripping the song of any unique sound. At least I can understand Casey this time. Well, during the verses I can. Score? It's like if Mirror Mirror was trying too hard. Reserved, simple, thoughtful. It's like a drink of fresh water on the soundtrack. Casey sounds totally in control of her voice. The instruments, for the most part, know how to stay in the back. It works so well during both RWBY's letter writing and when Yang and Weiss reconnect. This song sounds the way friendship feels, and I absolutely love the use of violins here. Score? Honestly, good for you to listen to when you're feeling stressed. Pretty weird to kick off the finale's credits with an explicitly Yang song when she arguably does the least of the girls for the volume. I feel it would have worked much better backing a fight. Not to mention that it hypes up Yang's reservations of putting on the new arm and her PTSD in a way that's never seen in the show. Regardless, it's punchy and energetic, not just a generic rock song, but rather one that has life in it. Score, the punny title was already enough to make me like it. This was made for the game, Grim Eclipse, so it's nebulously even canon. The eerie vibe that starts the song swiftly gets lost in the same generic rock sound that takes it over, and again I find it incredibly difficult to understand Jeff singing. Score, its title is Latin for freak of nature, and that's the only worthwhile part of the song. Jeff's attempt at writing a fun, bouncy love song. It's significantly more successful than the similar Not Fall in Love With You. This song was also not requested by RT, and as such didn't have any creative consultation on it with Jeff, meaning revealing the idea of Blake and Yang being a couple through this song was most likely not the intention. In fact, the only reason Bumblebee made it onto the soundtrack is because an injury delayed the soundtrack's release, giving Jeff time to compose the song. And I'm happy about that, because I think this is one of the funnest songs Jeff's written. It's a delight to listen to, even if you prefer Black Sun as a ship. Cute lyrics, energetic melody, bubbly use of synth, score, the best part of Blake and Ying's relationship. Conclusion. So clearly I think they fell flat in the first half of the soundtrack. However, Bumblebee's inclusion is eye-opening, as it shows me that Jeff makes really great work still, as long as it's a project he's interested in. Of course, I don't know the guy personally, or how the production of these soundtracks work, but knowing that Jeff made arguably one of my favorite RWBY songs without Rooster Teeth's request, or permission, makes me wonder if that's why so many other songs end up the way they do, with the overly wordy lyrics and too loud mixing. I'm not trying to imply Jeff doesn't care about his work, but I think it shows when he's not as interested or invested in a song. Also, minor thing, but I feel like almost every song on the soundtrack has the exact same drum beat. Overall score, at its best when you're totally not paying attention to it.
You're letting that boy make a fool of you.
By this time, Casey was just about 20 years old, and while she was an impressive singer back when she was 15 for the first soundtrack, you can really tell that she has improved and become a professional. She has so much more control and power that she lacked back then. As for the song, it's not doing much more than being enthusiastically hopeful, which works for being the volume's OP. Jeff's also pulled it back with the guitar, making for a much more cohesive experience than last volume's opening. Score, good coming home from work or class music. Fuck, I hate this song. It's all over the place, aimlessly throwing new instruments and cadences at you just to drop them immediately. Despite the barrage of fast lyrics, ballistic percussion, and out-of-nowhere horns, it's just boring. It all sounds the same, all at the same level of too much. Despite the message being, Yang is a badass, it has no power, and is easy to forget and ignore in her trailer where it features. Bored. That's what I feel listening to all this aimless noise. Score, it's like if I Burn was bad.
The path to isolation.
Subtitled Mirror Mirror Part 0.5 on the soundtrack, which makes sense, because again, it's the exact same thing as every other Weiss song. Weiss has 5 songs now, all telling us the exact same thing. They all also end up feeling like Jeff's just trying to do Mirror Mirror again. They all follow the same slow at first and then kick it up a notch with some rock, but none of them have come anywhere close to being as good as Weiss's first song. Write something new for her already. Score, just watch Groundhog Day instead. While Jeff's tendency to be overly wordy hurts the impact of some lyrics, this is overall easy to understand, and to a great effect. Listening to the story of Ilya's parents pulls you in and really makes you listen and think. Jeff's singing is also much clearer, though the bridge does see him go back to that scream in place of a real belt thing he tends to do, but overall the song's a delight. It stands out from the crowd with its unique use of drums and bolsters Ilya's characterization in a fun way. Score should have been used more in Blake's trailer. The worst song Jeff's ever produced. Starts slow for no reason, does nothing but draws out the runtime without adding to the overall composition. Instruments are way too loud. Casey and Jeff sound like they're speaking gibberish for most of the song. Stupid edgelord lyrics that just talk about death rather than actually expand on the women fighting in the scene the song's featured in. Boring, almost non-existent melody. Score, a complete waste of time. Subtitled From Shadows Part 2, I don't know why they didn't just go with the subtitled name. It's about the White Fang starting over with Gira taking its lead again. Also, so I get that I've said this a lot this video, but I really can't understand these lyrics. I'm trying so hard, I really am. I can't hear them. It's like they're speaking a different language. I want to understand them. I want to know what they're saying without looking up the lyrics to read, but I just can't. Beyond that, it's a forgettable song, no hook, and again, no real melody. Score, Blake deserved a better From Shadows Part 2.
All that matters years.
Another song about Bumblebee. I dig the slow vibe, it sounds like a song that could be sung in a smoky underground bar or something. I do wish Casey wasn't stuck in these high notes. The song has like no range. It's not really revealing anything new to the audience either, moreover just repeating what Ying's already said about Blake. But it's cute and it's nice to listen to. Score: Jeff's done more to try and establish Bumblebee than anything in the show ever did. Conclusion. Honestly, much like Volume 5, its soundtrack is pretty disappointing. Not only is it the shortest soundtrack so far, but it's just got no life. It sounds like Jeff was bored making these. Songs won't have any real composition to follow. He's not experimenting with his sounds. I've spent a lot of my time rewatching this volume over and over for reviews, and yet, this is the soundtrack I felt the least familiar with. Real talk, I was looking at the soundtrack listing, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember anything about All That Matters or This Time, and really, other than The Triumph, none of these songs are memorable, and the only reason I can remember The Triumph is because I had to listen to it at the beginning of every episode. Overall score? It's bad.
This is how the war begins.
Strong instrumentation of the song, it's the catchy guitar and synth that definitely sticks with me, but unfortunately, as is so often the case, the lyrics are difficult to understand and have a weak melody. It's not even saying anything with its lyrics either, it's kinda just like, we rule. Score? Just watch Judgmental Critter's ranking of the openings so you can see the synth boards scuttle across the screen that she edited. Still hard to understand, that should just be a given at this point. Honestly though, I think this would have made for a better opening song than Rising. It speaks on elements explored in the volume, setting the tone better for the stories as they unfold. It's also a bit languid for being the backing track of the Argus train fight. Switching them would have been for the best, in my opinion. Score: the sick nasty instrumental after the bridge is better than the entirety of the vocals. A song detailing Neo's history a bit. It's perfectly edgy enough for backing the fight between her and Cinder, though the lyrics are hard to hear during the show's combat, as Casey is getting smothered by Jeff and the drums, and of course ends up struggling through this tempo. And it's a shame, because this is interesting character building we're missing out on, though perhaps the worst part is the fact that this character building is trapped in supplemental material, like the soundtracks and books. Score: needs salt, it's bland. I wish Jeff was clearer. The song fleshes out Adam's weirdly nebulous history, and yet, I'm sorry, but Jeff's singing sucks on this track. I don't want to be mean, but this is bad. Not only is he as incomprehensible as ever, but like, he's not even holding the notes or following the melody well. I wish it sounded more like the grungy punk sound we'd heard in From Shadows. This song is bad. One of the worst I've heard. Score? It's a glorified guitar solo. Starting with a childlike Pop Goes the Weasel sample is baffling. So, for this video, I've refrained from looking at lyrics while listening to the song so as to see how well the vocals are easy to understand on their own. But for this one, the Pop Goes the Weasel bit was so confusing that I decided I had to read the lyrics as I went to see if that went anywhere. The song's just filled with cheap, shitty, empty references to a bunch of different nursery rhymes. It's basically just references unconnected in any way. They're so clearly grasping at straws for these lyrics. It has nothing to do with Cordo, despite being named after her and playing during the kids' fight with her. It's just so lazy. Score? I don't know, Lamar's rapping was good, I guess. Incorporating Adrian Cohen to imply both Blake and Yang are speaking is neat. It's a shame, then, that both women are still difficult to understand. I've never had this problem before. Like, I don't have bad hearing. I usually am able to understand lyrics in songs, including fast raps or throaty grunge and screamo. I wish I wasn't encountering this problem so much here, because these songs usually are tasked with doing characterization that never gets properly done in the show. If this is the only way we'll be able to hear Blake and Ying's thoughts on this topic, then let me fucking hear it. It plays during the finale credits, and it's doing nothing special there. Score? Adrian's voice is pretty. The This is another song detailing Jeff's feelings about Monty's passing. This one, though, is less mournful and more celebratory of the man, and it fucking rules! The mixing's excellent, Casey's clearly understood throughout, and she now has the pipes to be able to truly belt out lyrics in an incredibly powerful way. The song builds really cleanly, giving you the same heart-swelling action you'll find in Disney movies or old Pokemon soundtracks. I will say that the pacing of the hook feels a bit off. Though our body's weak and breakable, our spirit is indomitable. The syllables just don't jive, and it makes the chorus feel a little herky-jerky. Beyond that, while I like the idea of it being used during the scene where Ruby activates her eyes against the Leviathan, I don't feel the song was used well. Rather than just playing the on-the-nose, "there's a light that shines and its power is mine" section of the song, I think it deserves to get played out in its entirety. Score deserves to be listened to while you're giving it your full attention. Another song detailing how much Pyrrha fucking loved Jean. It's a sweet sentiment, if a bit repetitive, as this topic is the only one featured for Pyrrha's songs. Unfortunately, while it makes sense for its place in the show to be during Jean's slow walk into the graveyard to Pyrrha's statue, it's really soured the song for me. It makes me think of what I consider to be the worst scene of the volume. I wish I found it more emotional, but I just end up bored listening to this. Score? Hey, at least I can understand the lyrics for this one. Conclusion. This has got to be the worst soundtrack so far. Barring the two slower songs, each track on this album sounds fucking identical. The same ass tempo, same tone, same impossibly difficult to understand lyrics. Jeff sounds bored here. Like, it feels like he's not trying. Aside from Indomitable, each song sounds like the equivalent of homework finished the night before it's due. Overall score, I'd rather eat dirt.
To you, it's general.
A fun, upbeat song that ends up referencing the first volume's OP quite a lot. It ends up feeling like the girls are reflecting a lot on their story so far, which is kinda weird since, like, this isn't the final volume, or sees the kids in a particularly reflective story. While I also think the message of trust love is quite apt for the show, it's a bit weird to act as this volume's opening simply because it's not particularly connected to the trials scene here. Regardless, Casey sounds confident, and while I don't love Jeff's trust loves during the chorus, even he seems to be pulling it back to be more understandable. Score, good commercial music. Another very positive song. It sounds like Team RWBY are having a great time with their new gear and new Aesop friends as the song plays during their landing strategy. Honestly, I wish the song got more screen time, perhaps getting to back a fight. It's really boppy and cute. Casey sounds like she's having a blast, and so does Jeff with the backing instruments. Score? Deserved to get a sick fight. This song and the fight it plays under are some of the biggest reasons I found myself caring so much about Ironwood. Honestly, Hero is doing the heavy lifting when it comes to explaining the general's motivations, which end up being ignored by the writers next volume. It's punchy, it gets your blood pumping. Caleb's performance on vocals blows me away, especially the heart-wrenching beginning to the track. My only real complaint is that the bridge ends with a non-rhyme, but hands down, this is my favorite song on the soundtrack. Score? Iron Daddy. That 80s montage sound fuels me. Fuck, it's so damn upbeat. And it's the perfect song for the kids' job montage to be set to. The guitars practically laugh out the notes played. It's a more Jeff-heavy song, and while still a little tough to understand at points, he's much more reserved than the last soundtrack, producing a more cohesive product. Score? I hope the soundtrack to my life is this fun. It's probably not. The pseudo-80s pop vibe continues into the song that plays during Robin's election party, and more notably, Ren and Nora's kiss. Jeff's composed this alongside Erin Riley, and while I can't be quite certain on how she participated, I can't deny that the synth-heavy bleepity-bloopity sound is very unique amongst RWBY's soundtracks. And beyond that, the composition of the melody, the way the song is paced, is also noticeably different. Let's Get Real ends up feeling so unique that it helps bolster the returning topic of Nora has a crush on Ren. Score? Belongs at a roller disco. So, this song has 4 vocalists: Casey, Adrian, Aaron, and Dawn M. Bennett, Elm's voice actress. Because of this, I felt it pertinent to watch a video of the song with the lyrics clearly designating who's singing what lyrics. And my verdict on that idea is that the ladies all sound the same. I mean, they're all good, but I wish they were more easily distinguishable, especially since this is the first time it's implied we're getting all 4 members of RWBY singing together. The fast tempo and overall message fits pretty well for being played behind the Aesop's fight, but beyond the 4 vocalists gimmick, it's kinda basic. Score? Better teamwork than we've seen from the in-show Team RWBY. Another song that plays during Robin's election brouhaha. This time, it's a disco jam. Santi C being featured on this track adds a lot of soul to the lyrics, and Casey's able to match his enthusiasm really well. Lamar's rap break is also just as enjoyable as the verses and chorus. Despite the disco influences, it's perhaps the most modern-sounding RWBY song I've heard. It's got a funky, groovy tune with real fun utilization of horns and bass. I guess my only real complaint is that it doesn't really have anything to do with RWBY. Score? Honestly, this could just be on the radio. Casey composed and sang this one. It plays during Ozpin's speech as Oscar's falling, which is news to me because I never paid attention to the background music enough of that scene to realize it even had lyrics. Ozpin's talking too much. If they wanted to highlight the song, he should have been quieter. Regardless, I think Casey's a stronger lyricist than her dad, but I can't deny that his melodies are more thought-provoking, at least compared to Until the End. However, the smart use of piano and overall performance she does convey the sorrowful, haunting vibe that I think she was going for. Score? Don't listen to this if you're going through a breakup. Oscar's theme, and the song that plays during the volume's final credits. It caps off the volume real well, touching on a main topic discussed during the finale. It sounds quite a bit like a RWBY song, especially near the beginning, which I think is a fun connection. The explicitly angry feel of the choruses is also very thought-provoking, though I don't know how much I like the guitar solo here. I'm not sure if it's adding anything to the composition. Score? This song makes me wish Oscar got to do more. Conclusion. I'm glad that it seems Jeff got out of whatever artist block he'd seemed to have for the last 2 soundtracks. This soundtrack has some of the most diversity of the show, rivaled only by the first one, not only adding new vocalists, but having more composers and just branching out to more music genres helps the soundtrack from all sounding the same, like how had happened with Volume 6. It's a bit weird that so few songs are explicitly about an event or character, opting to instead simply voice an emotion for most of them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, just a bit unexpected. I do think there's a problem with the order of songs. I would not put Hero between Touch the Sky and Brand New Day. It's way too much tonal whiplash. I would instead suggest swapping its place with Celebrate. But overall, I'm delighted that the songs weren't just fun to listen to, but that Jeff's learned not to drown out Casey's vocals anymore. I could actually hear the lyrics again. Overall score, it's a fun soundtrack, even if you don't like RWBY.
Do not fall.
Still pretty difficult to hear at times. Casey's singing is nice, even without being able to understand her at all times. It's awfully melodramatic, which does fit the overall gloomy-ass tone of the volume. Perhaps I'd like the song better if I wasn't distracted by how the heroes are in such a melodramatic mood because they are the ones making enemies out of all their friends. It's also kinda boring, like, it just goes without feeling like it ever actually starts. Score? The show's bad writing is what hurts this song the most. We've heard this before, right? Like, this is just an amalgamation of other villain songs, like Sacrifice, Divide, and All Things Must Die. Fuck, it kinda sounds like Armed and Ready, too. And despite the ballistic pace and tempo, this song also is just a bore. Where's the hook? Hell, where's the damn melody? Overall score? Jeff's running out of ideas. Baffling that this plays during the shitty fight between Juniper and Ironwood. Like, Nora doesn't even do anything special in that fight. Why play a Nora song? The verses are back to being impossible to understand, and again it sounds fucking identical to everything else Jeff's written since 2017. When your Nora song sounds the same as the Hound song, you're doing this wrong. Score, no identity. This isn't a song. It's a transition. This doesn't belong on a soundtrack. Are we gonna put Nora's I'm Queen of the Castle, I'm Queen of the Castle on the next soundtrack? Fucking bullshit. Score, I think the video on Jeff's channel of the song, having over 9,000 views but only 464 likes, should tell you everything you need to know. Jeff's lucky we can't see the dislikes anymore. This is another amalgamation song. Wings, All Our Days, Forever Fall. If Jeff's just gonna copy and paste his old music for soundtracks, hire a new fucking musician. What happened to all the other people who worked on Volume 7's soundtrack, huh? At least they actually wrote new stuff. Overall score, boring and useless. It's trying so fucking hard. This song sounds really ingenuine, like Jeff's just going through the motions. Oh, it's a sad song? Start slow, small percussion, make Casey riff too much to imply emotion. Like, we've heard Jeff make this kind of song so many times now, that again it ends up feeling like a paint-by-number song. I will say that it's a nice production, Casey's easy to understand, the mixing's actually good, I really like the sparkly sound the song has. I guess this being Penny's song is pretty fitting, since the main way I'd describe it is that it's nice, but overly manufactured. Score, too wooden, needs to become a real boy still. This was made by Casey's band, OK Goodnight. It wasn't made for RWBY. It wasn't made with RWBY in mind. It's just an OK Goodnight song that they decided to put into the volume. And it fucking slaps! Like, I'm not saying it'd go into my top 10 RWBY songs, but it's leagues better than 99% of the shit we've been stuck with that Jeff's made for volumes 5, 6, and 8. The guitar is weighty and imposing, Casey's vocals are clear and haunting. The only real downside is that the song got shafted by playing during one of the shortest, shittiest fights of the show. Overall score, just let Casey make the show's music from now on, Jesus. Conclusion. This is hands down the worst soundtrack this show's had. Only 7 songs, and they only got to that many by inserting an OK Goodnight track in the nothing that was the truth. But fuck, even with only 5 songs, a soundtrack can still be good if you actually write some decent music. Jeff doesn't sound bored anymore. He sounds like he doesn't give a shit. He's just making the same generic crap with a different vague title over and over. Like, I'm gonna play different songs here. Listen. They sound the same, right? OK Goodnight rocks harder than Jeff ever has. And the only worthwhile thing on this shitty list of songs is that it can be an introduction for people to check out Casey's infinitely better music than Jeff's. Overall score. Jeff, if you're sick of working endlessly on music for a show with no plot and characters that don't grow, just quit, honey. I suppose I should figure out a conclusionary statement here, but I don't think people are going to like it. But speaking honestly, I really don't think each volume should be getting its own soundtrack. It totally worked for Volume 1, where the trailer songs and their alt versions was basically a full playlist already. Add in the OP and final credit songs and you're good to go. But for basically every other soundtrack, it feels like they've been pushing Jeff too much. So many songs sound lifeless. So many songs sound like homework. This yearly release means very little time gets to be given to any song, and it's forced Jeff to prioritize quantity over quality. Gotta make 8 crappy songs that he doesn't really care about, instead of 4 great ones that he's passionate about. I think it's telling that the songs I considered some of the best were the ones that Jeff made on his own, without the direction of Miles and Carey. Jeff is a better musician than most of the songs would leave you to believe, and it's not fair that he has to lower his standards so much for the show's ludicrous release schedule. Incorporating more musicians to help fill out soundtracks is a great idea, not only to help give some variety to the soundtracks, but also so Jeff isn't wrung out like an orange every year. To shift over to the subject of the songs, I wish we got more songs dedicated to our heroes, or, more specifically, for Ruby fucking Rose. Weiss and Yang especially have gotten tons of songs each, and Blake catches up to them with all the shipping tracks she gets. The baddies usually get one a volume, Juniper probably get one too. Some songs are just nebulously about being cool, but RWBY? Just as ignored as she is in the show. Red Like Roses Parts 1 and 2 have been the only songs explicitly attributed to the main fucking protagonist of the show, and that's stupid. Sorry for being blunt, but it just is. If we're gonna get literally 5 Weiss songs all about how mean her daddy is, and Blake can get 5 songs about how much everyone wants to bone her, how come we can't get one fucking more song about our title character? About her eyes, about her mom, about her fears, about her determination. Fuck, it could be about how much she likes the color red. Yeah, make sure to do a Dumbo song about Cordovan's mech. Wouldn't want to spend any of that time exploring the protagonist, actually. I realize I've gotten a bit aggressive here. I did mention earlier that music can be important to people, and it is. Red Like Roses Parts 1 and 2 are some of my favorite songs the show has produced. I want to have more songs to love like those, and instead we're stuck with a million identical tracks where Jeff's incomprehensible and the lyrics are about shit anyway. I wish I was happier with these soundtracks. Of course, I seem to be in the minority here. Every time some musician reacts to a RWBY song, they cry and talk about how it's the greatest thing to bless the heavens. Tons of tweets and posts on Reddit say shit like, the soundtracks are the only good thing about the show anymore, or whatever. And I'm just like, are we listening to the same song here? I'm glad others get to have a better time with these soundtracks, but I also can't help but wonder if they're letting their passion for the show or a blind love of Jeff Williams paint those opinions. I certainly know I'm more forgiving of mediocre music when it's performed by my favorite band. Either way, RWBY's music has certainly found its place in lots of people's hearts, myself included. I know this conclusion ended up pretty negative, but I do want to mention that the songs I liked, I really like. It's perhaps why I became so disappointed. I know Jeff can do better than this, and I look forward to when he's given the opportunity to get to do that again.
Shut the fuck up. Listen to this part. This is the best part of the song right here. Oh, I fucking love it.